Hi, I'm James Kennerley, Portland's Municipal Organist, and I am here to take you on a virtual tour of the Mighty Kotzschmar Organ here in Merrill Auditorium in Portland. So, this is the organ console. This is where the mighty beast is controlled from. You can see that we have different keyboards. We call these manuals. There are 5 of them. And then on the floor, we have the set of pedals, which I play with my feet. And then these things to my left and right are called stops. If I pull out a stop, I'll make a sound. And we're going to talk about all of that. But first, we're going to go backstage into the organ itself, kind of the bowels of the organ. So follow me, and I'll show you where it all starts. So now we are backstage. You can see behind me the beautiful golden pipes of the facade. These actually don't make any noise, they're just there to look pretty and really to cover up this, which is the mechanism. You can see above me we have lots of pipes and these tubes that carry the wind that supplies the pipes. And there are 7,101 pipes in this amazing organ. And what we're going to do now is go inside this part here. So all of the organ sits on a great big box we call the windchest, and this windchest is filled up with air under really, really high pressure from a big 25 horsepower engine turbine. And then when the organist, which generally tends to be me, presses a note down on one of the keyboards or the pedals, that tells the organ to let the air up into those pipes, and then that's how the organ makes sound. So now we're going to go inside the windchest. So that all starts here, and there's a little, it's like going through a space portal. This is the universal air chest system, which is from the Austin Organ Company that built this in 1912. And it was brilliant because you could go inside the organ while it's playing. If I push in here, this is going to show how much air pressure there is right behind this wood. So you can see there's a huge amount of air pressure in there. And as we go through this door, we're going to go inside while the air is in there. And I always find it funny to look backstage. You can see remnants for our previous concerts, including this rather nice looking skeleton. He's our oldest Kotzschmar fan. I sometimes joke that this is Herman Kotzschmar, but it's just a plastic skeleton. So let's go inside the windchest. So we're now inside the windchest of the organ. Outside me, remember, there's that sort of metal studded wall that goes all the way around, and above us are all of the pipes of the organ. And immediately above us you will see all of these tiny moving objects that control the stops of the organ, and when I push a key or a foot pedal, the notes that play. And because there are 5 keyboards and a pedal board and 7,101 pipes, that's why we have such a huge sort of workspace in here. And one of the fun things about this organ is that if something goes wrong, which it really doesn't tend to that often, we can send the technicians in here and they can look at the exact item and fix it. A little bit like crawling underneath your car hood when something's going wrong and saying, oh, that's the problem, let me tweak it and fix it. And that was new to this instrument. The Austin Organ Company pioneered this idea of being able to walk inside while the instrument is playing. So you'll see above me, essentially when you see a little box like that, that's the electropneumatic action, that when I push down a key, electricity comes in to the organ, it's magnetizes, and then it causes this to contract, and that's what lets the wind into the pipe and it allows it to play. And where we are here, this is called the pedal division, and because the pedal, the notes, the pipes are huge, they have to be spread more evenly apart, and so you will see above us that these magnets are spread, about a foot apart from each other, because the pipes themselves above are so large. as we come over to some of these notes, this is one of the keyboards. Because the pipes are smaller, you'll see that the mechanisms themselves are much closer together. So we're going to proceed down the windchest, and I'll show you, these are called the windchest regulators. Now, when this is filled up with air, pressurized air, the air wants to push everything outwards, it wants to escape. And if I play a very, very loud chord on the organ that's using all of the stops and all of the air, it's tempting for the wind to sag. So what these do is they combat that by creating extra pressure. And so you will see that it's really like a pair of human lungs. They expand and contract as necessary, and it's controlled by various weights and these levers that you can see up here. And as we move down to this end, you'll see these fairly fascinating looking things. These control the swell shades, and I'll show you a little bit of the swell shades later. The swell shades open and close. When they open, it lets more of the organ sound out. And when they're closed, it keeps more of that sound in, like this, and then opens up like a Venetian blind. And this is all controlled from 1912 technology, where I close the pedal on the organ, and this will collapse down, and it will pull this lever here, which transfers across, and then clips onto a wire here that goes all the way to the end of the organ and about 50 feet up into the organ above us. So everything is controlled. This is like the spaceship controller. Over here you can see the wind line actually comes in beneath us. If I open this up, you can see a hopefully a very large pipe. It's about 2 feet, 3 feet in diameter, and that is sending all of this pressurized air into the organ that fills up this space. And actually up here you can see a picture of the blower, the motor that creates the air, the wind for the organ. And you can see it's about 5-6 feet high. It's a huge machine. And then that air comes down this organ wind line. It's about 100 feet up in the attic of the space, and then it comes right into here to create the air for this space. And then we're going to have a look into another airlock. As I said, this is a bit like a spaceship. Because all of this air is pressurized, everything needs to be kept nice and separate. So this is the solo organ. It has some of the high pressure stops, so the wind is at a higher pressure to the rest of the organ. So that's why we have our own little space in here. And you can see, just like the other parts of the organ, all of the mechanisms above us that control the stops. And so when I push down a note, one of these fires, and that causes the air to go into the pipe and to make sound. So I've got 2 pipes here. Don't worry, these are not from the Kotzschmar organ. These are here for demonstration, and I wanted to show you the 2 ways that the organ makes sound. One of the pipes look like this. This is really like a recorder, and I'm going to come close up to the organ. You'll see there's a gap here, a mouth, and what happens is the air is supplied up the bottom. It goes in to this mouth area, and just like a whistle, when you close your lips, it makes sound. So when I blow into this, it makes sound a little bit like a very sad sounding whistle. And so when I make the pipe longer, then I make the sound lower. If the pipe is smaller, the pitch gets higher. Now this is called a flue pipe. Think flue, flute. This, however, is called a reed pipe. I'm going to take this apart. Now down here, you can see a little piece of metal. Very, very thin piece of metal called a reed. And if you play an oboe or a clarinet or a saxophone, this really makes the sound in the same way. When the wind comes across, it beats against this reed and makes it vibrate against this metal part, which we call the shallot. And that sound is resonated up the resonator, as we call it, and then that makes the sound. This sounds more like a trumpet. So those are the two main organ pipes. So here we are at the Kotzschmar console. Gonna have a quick audio tour of this magnificent beast. But first of all, just to clarify the different roles here, you see the 5 keyboards. These all play different sounds related to the divisions indicated by the signs up here. So any of these stops in the great organ row will play on the great organ keyboard, which is the second one up. So if I pull out, for example, this flute, that stop plays on that keyboard, but it doesn't play on this keyboard, or this one, or this one, or this one. Likewise, if I want to play something, let's say on this keyboard, I'll pull out one of the sounds. And I can make a sound on that keyboard, but it won't play on this keyboard or this one. And so the organ works by having those contrasting sounds on different keyboards, and then I can summon those as I wish, depending on where I play. But the funnest thing about the organ are the pedals. And you'll see down below, it looks, excuse me for not wearing shoes, but I am wearing my little keyboard socks. The pedals play notes. And I expect I can play some chords. So that's all played with my feet. And so I can play using my hands and my feet at the same time and make a really fun sound. So let's start with the great organ. The most classic organ sound is this one here. It's called a diapason or a principal pipe. It looks just like those ones at the front, and it sounds like this. This one here is called a borden. It's a flute stop. It's made out of wood. Sounds a little more like a flute. Now, this one in red is called a reed stop. And this is called a trumpet, and it's meant to sound just like an orchestral trumpet. Now you'll notice that some of these sounds are a lot like an orchestra. Here are 2 viols. If I play those, you'll hear a very lush orchestral sounding contour. Here's a clarinet. Here is an English horn. Here's a French horn. Here is a tuba, which is more like a trumpet type stop. And here is the tuba magna, which is the, as the name implies, the loudest stop on the keyboards. Over on this side, I have some fun instruments. Here is a musette, that's a French bagpipe. Here is a wonderful sound called the vox humana, literally the human voice. And here is another oboe. And then we have these instruments, cornopia and a clarion and a contraffagotto, which sound very fiery. Now moving on to the pedal, these are the bass sounds, like the double basses of an orchestra. Some of these are incredibly low sounding that you can barely even hear the pitches. These pipes are 32 feet in length. And then if I use these red stops, this one here, the bombard, makes a very regal, loud, raspy sound. And here is the mightiest stop on the pedal, the contrabombard, 32 feet in length. So it sounds a little bit more like a helicopter than an organ, but once that's included in the full organ, here's an example of that. That's an example of me pulling out all the stops. You see, if I push one of these magic buttons, all of those stops fly out and I can make the loudest sound the organ can make. So now, you remember we saw these facade pipes earlier. We're going to go on a journey across the backstage of the organ. So you've seen the downstairs where the windchest, where all of the pressurized air is collected and all of the mechanisms that cause that air to go into the pipes. Now you're upstairs, kind of in the dining room, if that's the kitchen, and this is where all of the sound happens. And so you can see these beautiful array of pipes, and all of these pipes make a different pitch sound, and every single pipe corresponds to one of those mechanisms we saw downstairs. So you see why the organ is incredibly large, incredibly complicated, and really incredibly exciting to listen to. And if you look out beyond these pipes, the facade pipes, you can see Merrill Auditorium, and the console is just down below us. And so this is a view that very few people are able to have, because you're normally in the seats of the auditorium. And you wouldn't want to listen to a concert back here because it would be very, 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 very loud. So here are the pipes, and as I said, the shorter the pipe, the higher the pitch. The longer the pipes go, and these ones here are about 8 feet long, then the lower the pitch. And so the organ has a very distinctive look. You have these beautiful curves that go all the way from the shortest pipes up to the tallest, and you'll see that throughout this instrument. Now, these pipes you're looking at are what we call unenclosed pipes. So there's nothing surrounding them. They speak into the room itself. But the ones just behind the shades are enclosed. At the moment, those shades are open. But as you'll see, when I control it with the console, those shades will close, and the pipes inside there will sound much quieter. And that's how we can make the organ expressive. Unlike the piano, I cannot hit the key harder to make the sound louder. I push the key one way and the sound comes out regardless of what touch I use. So we can make the organ expressive by opening and closing these swell shades.
Yep.
So now we're going to move up onto the upper level of pipes. There are 2 levels of pipes here. We're on the first floor. There's another floor up top, and believe it or not, there's a 3rd level where we have all of the toy stops. So, I hope this ladder holds up. And there we have it. This is one of the taller pipes of the organ. This is about 28 feet long, and it makes a very low, profound bass sound. So I'm now on the 2nd level of the Kotzschmar organ pipes. You can see over here we're now up the top of those pipes I showed you were mitered. The very tallest ones extending up at the top there. And you can see the tops of some of the pipes, these ones included, have wooden stoppers in them. And what that means is that the air comes up the pipe, and then where the piece of stopper, the wooden stopper is, that air then reflects down again, and it's as if that pipe is twice the length because that air is having to travel twice as long. These are the bass stops, so you can see how wide they are. They're about 2, sometimes 3 feet wide. But we're up here to go into another part of the organ. I'm going to open up these magical doors, and hey presto, yet more pipes. So these pipes you can see much similar to the other instrument. They're arranged from smallest to largest. You can see the auditorium outside there, and this is the top part of the swell organ. You can see those shades just behind the pipes, and again the pipes are in immaculate condition. We're going to go through the length of the organ chamber into this division. Now, you won't see pipes in here. These are actually the resonating tubes for the percussion division, the harp and the xylophone and the marimba. So you don't find those on most pipe organs, but the Kotzschmar organ has these beautiful percussion instruments that really reproduce something you would hear in an orchestra played by a person, except here they're played by a mallet. Here is the harp. I think that's actually the glockenspiel. Here's the harp. And so these sounds are all made by actual musical instruments, albeit not played by tiny humans, but by one organist. So you see where we are here. These are the front pipes, so-called facade pipes. You can just about see Merrill Auditorium behind us. And now we're going to go into the organ, into the enclosed division. So join me as we go through these miniature doors designed for very small people. And inside here, you'll see much the same as we saw outside. The pipes are arranged from shortest to longest. The shortest ones are down here in the middle. And if I take it right down to their level, you can see how small these pipes are. And we always have a dollar bill here in the organ, and that's to show relatively how small these pipes are. You can see that a lot of these pipes are tied because they make so much noise. They tend to rattle, sometimes rattle themselves out of their footing. Here is one of the orchestral effects. It's the orchestral bell. And here you can see the chimes. Those are played from a mallet at the top. This thing here is called the tremolo. And when this is turned on, it has a motor that rotates it round, and it literally agitates the air coming out of these pipes and makes it sound like it's shaking, like it's a tremulant. And you can also see here the different thicknesses of pipes. The thicker the pipe, the richer, the darker almost, the darker the sound. And also this beautiful metal alloy that they're made out of makes a very beautiful dark sound. You can also see this pipe is made out of wood, so that's going to make a very sweet, fluty sound. And these pipes here are incredibly thin. And so those are going to make a very thin, reedy sound. So the type of material the pipes are made out of, whether that's the wood or metal, the type of the metal or the type of the wood, all of these things influence the sound of the organ. And that's why we have so much variety and colour in this marvellous instrument. So you'll remember inside the organ that we looked at pipes of different lengths. And those lengths correspond to these numbers that you'll be able to see above all of the stop sounds. 8, 4, 2. Here's a Roman numeral for 5. It's a mixture of pipes. 16. And those refer to the lowest sound of that rank of pipes. I pulled out one that says 8. That means the longest pipe. As the pipes get shorter, the pipes get higher. Now, if I pull out one that says 4 foot, that's going to sound a whole octave above the 8 foot. Likewise, if I pull out 2 foot, that will sound an octave above the 4 foot. And if I pull out the mixture, you'll hear several different pitches speaking at once. Now, if I pull out those stops together, you'll hear that they harmonize very beautifully. And that's how the choruses, as we call them, of the pipe organ are built up. A little bit like bringing in the instruments of the orchestra up to a full fortissimo climax. We're going to finish this organ sound tour now with the fun stops, the toy stops. Now, Most pipe organs have the sounds I've just demonstrated, maybe not quite as many of them as this organ, but this organ is wonderful in that it has a lot of toy stops. Here is a xylophone. Here's a marimba. Here is a glockenspiel. Here is a very beautiful harp. If someone comes knocking at your door, we have chimes. If we want to recreate a scene from the Middle East, we have a Turkish cymbal. If we're on a graveyard scene in a movie, we have a very somber bell. If we're in Vienna for a lovely waltz, we have the triangle. If we're being chased by horses, we have the hoofs. If there's a fire, we have a fire gong. If the train is running towards us and we're still stuck on the tracks, we have the train whistle. Someone's at the door, they can ring the bell. If it's a beautiful spring day, the birds are tweeting outside. And if we're about to get run over, a good old-time car horn. In addition to those, we have a tambourine. We have castanets. We have a woodblock. We have a snare drum. And then we have a crash cymbal. We have a roll cymbal. We have a tap cymbal. And we have a bass drum. And a bass drum roll. So we can make up an entire piece based on just the percussion alone. And then we have these called swell pedals, and these are what open and close the shades. As I open and close these with my feet, it opens and closes the shades of the organ. And then these smaller buttons here, which are called foot pistons, I push those with my feet, and that causes sounds that I've set up to appear on the organ. The same thing happens underneath the keyboards with these buttons that cause different sounds to come out when I push them. So here I am at the very top of the Kotzschmar organ. This is about the highest that the Merrill Auditorium stage goes. And I'm up here with the toy stops of the organ. So that's the percussion, the cymbals and the bass drum and the car horn and the tweeting bird and all those fun things. And I'm actually at the same height as the tallest pipes. So they go from all the way down where you are there up to about here, 32 feet high. So there you have it. The Kotzschmar organ in all its wonderful variety, including those fun percussion and toy stops.